Optimistic about the 2025 Miami Dolphins? We are tonight.
You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network.
There's a team that's in our hearts. We've got love that won't depart. We are always in the stands, 'cause we're super Dolphin fans. Football is mighty rough. Winning gets awful tough. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins. We're rooting for the Dolphins. Our mighty, mighty Dolphins.
Hello, Miami Dolphin fans, and welcome to the Same Old Dolphin Show, part of the DolphinsTalk.com podcast network. I'm Josh Katzker. With me today and every day is my brother from the exact same mother, Aaron the Brain. Aaron, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people.
Brain, how you doing on this week one of the NFL season?
Oh, it doesn't even feel like it's week one of the NFL season. I'm just enjoying what has been a glorious 4-day weekend. And today I was chilling out in my hammock on another perfect day here in central New York. Just loving life. And then, turns out we got Dolphins football in less than a week. Win-win.
We're like 3 days away from actual football, actual meaningful NFL football. I am so fired up. Let's go. I am ready. Here's the thing. We're going to dive into this episode today. I'm not going to beat around the bush. We're going to dive right into it. I think a lot of people, whether it's this YouTube channel in general, whether it's this show specifically, a lot of folks have come after us and said, you're too negative all the time. You're always negative about this team. You're always looking at things with a glass half empty attitude. And it's really not great. The vibes are so bad. You've sort of bought into the national media narrative that this team is going to be no good. I'm here to tell you that from right now until the end of this episode, we are bringing you nothing but good vibes about your 2025 Miami Dolphins. Today, me and Aaron the Brain are approaching the 2025 Miami Dolphins season. We're looking at the 2025 Miami Dolphins season through aqua and orange lenses, baby. We are taking a positive approach to what this team is going to be capable of this year. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're making an optimistic case for your Miami Dolphins in 2025. Sound good, Brain?
Sounds great.
Fantastic. So make sure that you're watching along with us. Now I'll caveat it a little bit. I'm not going to carve out room. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm going to tell you that we're not going to sit here and tell you that this team's going to go 17-0 and in the regular season and cruise through the playoffs and become the Super Bowl champions. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay reasonably realistic as we go through this, but we're going to approach things positively. We're gonna be optimistic about this team on today's show. Whether or not that is what we actually think this team is going to be, you're gonna have to find out on Thursday when we do our official season predictions. Now, I know we both made predictions on the Dolphins Talk Roundtable last week, but those aren't the official predictions. The official predictions come in Thursday, right before the Dolphins season actually kicks off for real. But for today, we're gonna be completely optimistic for the length of this show. If you disagree with any of the takes that we're firing off tonight, that's fine. I'm just going to tell you to make sure that you tune in on Thursday as well. But before we go any further, a reminder, if you're not doing so already, to make sure that you hit the thumbs up right below this video. If you're watching on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel, make sure you're subscribed to the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you're notified every single time we go live on this channel, and that's going to happen quite often throughout the season. If you're watching us live on the I'm a Miami Dolphin Fan Facebook page or the Same Old Dolphin Show Facebook page, that's fantastic. We appreciate you. We love you. But the easiest way to get your comments read on the air and to be part of the conversation is to join us on the Dolphins Talk YouTube channel and make sure you're watching over there. So give us a shout out. Make sure you're watching there. Give us a comment. Let us know where you're watching today. Make sure you download, rate, review, and subscribe to the Same Old Dolphins Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere that you get your podcast. And also, for less than 1 week, you now have just a few days left to head over to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk and join Dolphins Talk Extra at the introductory rate of $1 for your very first month. If you sign up for the $3 tier, you can get in for $1 for your first month using the promo code DTX1. You can be entered into our Survivor Pool contest, which just went live, our weekly Pick'em game that was going to be going on throughout the length of the season, and then you get access to our Discord as well, and all of the extra bonus content that is coming your way at Dolphins Talk Extra. So head on over there, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Use the promo code DTX1 to get your first month for only $1. And of course, caneswear.com is the spot. Miami fan shop. Get all the most affordable Miami Dolphins gear at caneswear.com. All right, here we go. Aaron the Brain, it's time to talk positive about the Miami Dolphins.
Did you freeze right at the time where we were supposed to talk positive about the Miami Dolphins?
Yes, we're going to talk positive about the Miami Dolphins.
Oh, it froze there for a second. I thought, you made mention of it. It's time for us to talk positive, and then the entire system crashed.
Oh, of course it did. Of course it did. Well, no, we're going to talk positive about the Miami Dolphins today. And I think we're going to start where we have to start, which is people always talk about the Dolphins, and whenever they talk about the Dolphins, the first caveat that they will always bring to the table is if Tua Tagovailoa stays on the field. Let's be positive, and let's take a look at this Miami Dolphins season, assuming Tua Tagovailoa does, in fact, stay healthy for 17 regular season games. I think it is very safe to say that this team has the ability to execute at its highest level when Tua Tagovailoa is on the field. Would you disagree with that?
Well, certainly I wouldn't disagree with that. I mean, this offense is built around Tua. The issue they have is running the offense in even close to, as efficient a way with when Tua is not in the game. And that's why it's so important for Tua to be on the field. When Tua is on the field, this team has a shot, because when he's been on the field for really, I mean, you could call it 3 seasons now, even though last season was not his best. Over the last 3 years, when Tua has been on the field, this team has been a top 10 offense. In some stretches, they've been a top 5 offense, and they've been a winning football team.
Yeah, they have been. And it very much is. This offense was designed specifically to Tua Tagovailoa's superpowers, if you will, which is his ability to anticipate where his guys are going to be and to have that quick release and get that ball to where it needs to be in this offense. So that's step one. Then you've got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. Last year we had problems getting both of those guys on the field at the same time and having them both be healthy. Tyreek was injured and less than 100% for the length of the season, and there's been a lot of talk and a lot of bluster about Tyreek Hill and his off the field antics, and is he going to be on this team, and will he or won't be traded? Well, August 31st is come and gone, and he is still a member of this Miami Dolphins team, so he has received his roster bonus, and the Dolphins are set to have Tyreek in their corner here. They didn't name him a captain today, but that's okay. He said he needed to earn that respect in order to be able to become a captain again in the future. So now he's out there playing for truly, I think, whether it is his ability to be on this team next year or his ability to be recognized as a player who remains an elite wide receiver in the National Football League. So I think it's safe to say that Tyreek Hill is going to be approaching this 2025 season motivated, with a great deal of motivation to prove that what happened last year, the fact that his advanced statistics kind of fell off, and that his numbers really fell off last year, that was all, just due to the injury and due to the fact that Tua was out, and that this year he's going to bounce back in a big way. So not only do you have Tyreek Hill, you also have Jalen Waddle, and you also have this improved wide receiver core for the Miami Dolphins. I truly think you can make that argument that unit has truly gotten better. And when you look at Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, who they had before, but now they've upgraded the rest of the room to include, yes, Malik Washington is back, but he's now developed a bit more chemistry with Tua. So I think he's a little bit further down the line in terms of that relationship. They've brought in Nick Westbrook-Akine. They've got D. Eskridge, and they've got Taj Washington now, who really seems like he's going to be able to contribute in a big way to this Miami Dolphins offense. I think the recipe is there for Tua and these receivers to really hit it off and carve some teams apart this season.
Yeah, I think this is the best receiving core that they've had under Mike McDaniel, and arguably you can make the argument that this might be the best receiving core that the team has ever had, because, comparing the top two guys to any two guys that the Dolphins have ever had, the only even remotely close comparison there would be, comparing them to the Marx brothers. But, when they had the Marx brothers, it was after them, it was who? It was Nat Moore and then basically nobody. This team has 6 legitimate receivers. Malik Washington, I think, plays that slot role perfectly. Taj Washington, I think, has the upside of potentially being a speed guy. And then Nick Westbrook-Akine is a different body type than this wide receiver core has had. The closest thing that you could compare him to would be like what they had last year in Jonnu Smith. Not as big as Jonnu Smith, who's a tight end, but another guy that could be a big target in the red zone for them. And can also be a force blocking. And speaking of blocking, look, the biggest thing is everything in with the Dolphins, and you touched on this when you mentioned the caveat. It's about if Tua Tagovailoa is healthy. It's not just about Tua Tagovailoa being healthy. It's about
Rand. I don't know if you can hear me right now, but I have completely lost your voice here. I cannot hear you at all. You've gone completely silent here. So I don't know if there's an issue with your microphone there or what, but I've lost you. I've been enjoying watching you talk, but I stopped hearing you talk a moment ago.
Well, let me restart.
There you are. Now I got you. Oh, and now he's gone. So now he's left the stream. This is exciting. See, this is what happens when we start to talk positively about the Miami Dolphins. We get Aaron, the brain disappears and comes back, and all kinds of things there. Brain, are you there?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I don't know what the issue was. I tend to think it might have been something on your end, but anyway, you hear me, and that's great. What I was going to say is, you touched on the caveat of if Tua is healthy. And what I'm saying is it's not just Tua. The entire the caveat about this entire roster is if it stays healthy. So before we get into any specific position groups from here on out, we just need to say, look, we're being optimistic, right? Everybody's healthy. And to be honest, we're less than a week from week 1 of the regular season. And it looks like the entire starting offense is healthy. Darren Waller was practicing. Tyreek Hill is practicing. Austin Jackson is practicing. Devon Achane is practicing. Aside from Jalen Wright, who's your backup running back, who's probably at this point your third running back on the roster, your entire offense is healthy. And so, and there were some issues on the defense, but for the most part, aside from, Kader Kohu, who's out for the year, your entire defense is relatively healthy. So we're just going to assume that everything is healthy and that the Dolphins are going to have good injury luck this year because they are due. And so specifically on the offensive side of the ball, in not just having the deepest receiving core that they've had in years and possibly ever, this offensive line could be better than it has been in years. I know that they lost Teron Armstead, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that even in the most optimistic outlook that Patrick Paul is going to be better than Teron Armstead. But Patrick Paul has had an amazing camp, was highly touted for his tools, for his athleticism and his size as a prospect when the Dolphins drafted him, and by all accounts has been tremendous this camp and this preseason and has taken the leap. So if you get 80% of what Teron Armstead gave you when healthy, and Patrick Paul is healthy for 17 games, I'd probably take that over Teron Armstead. And then you look at the interior of the offensive line. James Daniels and Jonas Avainea are upgrades over Robert Jones and Liam Eichenberg or Isaiah Wynn, however you want to splice it. Austin Jackson is back. We've seen Austin Jackson play at a high level. Aaron Brewer is a great fit for the system and had a great season for the Dolphins last year. This offensive line could be better. And here's the thing. If the offensive line is better and you don't need to get rid of the ball in less than 2.5 seconds, and you're able to get better at running the football, and now you have not just Devon Achane, but a guy in Ollie Gordon who can run between the tackles, that can give you the tough yards, that can be your guy on short yardage and goal line situations. This running game could get back on track to where it was in 2023. When this running game was on track in 2023, it was one of the best running games in the league, and the Dolphins were one of the best offenses in the league. Better running game, healthier quarterback. Tua played all 17 games in 2023. Deeper receiving core, better passing game, better offense as a whole. This could be an elite offense.
You can absolutely make the argument that the ingredients are there for this team to put together an offensive explosion and not just be like, listen, we know that the offense was broken last year, and we know that that a result of the offense being broken last year was Jonnu Smith just getting fed for days, because that was about the only thing that the Dolphins offense could do. But with the emergence of Ollie Gordon, there is an opportunity. And I tend to think that there is an avenue here where Ollie Gordon gets used in the way that Raheem Mostert was used by the Dolphins in 22 and 23, as he's like truly your lead back. And that allows Devon Achane to be more of a kind of feature back that is being used, being used as a running back in the backfield strategically, but then is also allowing him to be implemented into the slot as well, and perhaps being spread out as a receiver, allowing this team to diversify what they do on offense. I think that, and that kind of leads me to one of the next points that I have here about the Dolphins and about a way that I think this Dolphins team could significantly improve this year is Mike McDaniel's implementation of the offense. We have talked a lot about the Miami Dolphins and Mike McDaniel. We've talked like endlessly about Mike McDaniel being terrible at challenges, and his situational play calling is so not great. And, he's always trying to outsmart the other team, and he's always trying to do all of that. But if he can manage to take some lessons from what he has experienced these past few years as the head coach and implement things in a smart way where he can diversify what he's doing on offense, where they can, just because such and such player is on the field doesn't mean that they're going to do such and such, and have an opportunity to mix things up and mask what they're doing, will truly be able to put teams into conflict and maybe, just maybe, unlock another layer of what this offense is able to do, and unlock it in such a way that what this team wants to do is not dependent on what it is that the defense is trying to do, that they can figure out a way to succeed regardless of what the opponent is bringing defensively. And I think perhaps that is a way forward for the Dolphins this year. Brain, thoughts on Mike McDaniel and his ability to take a step forward this year?
Yeah, I think it's all fair. I think it's trusting what you have on your offensive line, to be able to call games in a more aggressive manner, not calling games out of fear of your quarterback getting injured. It's being able to lean on your running game. It's being able to pick up short yardage. And then it's, things like just, better use of, getting the plays called faster, better usage of timeouts, better usage of challenges. These are all things that can improve over time. And he's got another year under his belt. So, you would think that with another year of experience, he will be better in those regards. So I don't think it's out of the question. But I think to your larger point, it's about the depth of the roster on offense, having a deeper receiving core, having more guys that can beat man coverage, so that if Tyreek and Waddle are being bracketed on the outside, you have other guys that can beat man coverage. You have Malik Washington. You have Taj Washington. You have Darren Waller, who has done it in the past. You have Devon Achane coming out of the backfield, and you have a viable between the tackle running game that the other team has to respect, so that they can't just drop 7 guys into coverage and still stop your running game. Now, if teams drop 7 guys into coverage and you have better guard play and you have a running back that can run through a tackle like Ollie Gordon, then they may have to put an extra guy down in the box. They might have to, only be able to drop 6 in coverage or only drop 5 in coverage. And on base defenses, they might have to play with 7 guys in the box. And that gives you more space for your impact receivers, your Tyreek Hills and your Jalen Waddles. And speaking of another year of experience, look, another year in the offense to add layers to the offense with all these weapons. I think we could see our best version of Tua as well.
Yeah, there's no reason to think that we can't, especially with Darren Waller being added in. I think that is, if Darren Waller is able to come in and be that guy that he was with the Raiders, and even to some extent, the beginning of his career with the Giants, that's going to be a huge addition for this team. Listen, we know that it's a weakness of the Dolphins team is that their tight ends have not been able to be the inline blockers that you want them to be. And there's, I know we're doing an optimistic show today. And so I'm going to say, I doubt very much that Darren Waller is going to be that guy that can deliver it to you. But if he's able to bring something to the table, if you're able to get something from Julian Hill, you're going to add that little extra element as well. And let's not forget that they now have brought in Greg Dulcich as well, formerly of the Denver Broncos, into the mix. So there's another guy with a little bit of experience for you in that tight end room. So the Dolphins are building out that room as well to supplement this offense in whatever way they can. And so I think it is, it's a big opportunity here for the Miami Dolphins in 2025 on the offense. Brain, anything else to discuss in terms of this offense and its step forward here for 2025?
No, I think we kind of covered everything. We talked about Tua. We talked about the backs. We talked about the offensive line. We talked about the receivers and even with tight ends. What I'd say about the tight ends, look, obviously we're giving an optimistic view of everything, but we're still trying to be grounded in reality. It's still like reasonable expectations. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Darren Waller is going to go out and put up the numbers that Jonnu Smith put up last year. What I'm telling you is he doesn't have to. He just has to be somebody that can be an extra guy that can make some big time receptions in the middle of the field, because if he's another piece that can beat man coverage, which is all he needs to be, he just needs, can you beat a linebacker? Can you beat a linebacker on like a 7 or 8 yard hook route or on an in or an out route? Can you be an extra guy that Tua can find when the pocket is collapsing or on a 3rd down and they're bracketing Tyreek and Waddle? I think Darren Waller can be that. We're assuming that everybody is healthy. We're assuming that Darren Waller is ready to go. He's back at practice. he can be that. That might be, 3 or 4 targets a game. That might be, 50 to 60 targets over the course of a season. That might turn out to be 30 to 40 catches over the course of the season for about 400 yards. That would be a fine role for Darren Waller, and it would be a big time contribution when you consider all of the other weapons that this team has.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a look now, move from the offense to the defense, and see how the defense can take a step forward in 2025. But before we do that, want to let you know that this episode of the Same Old Dolphins Show is brought to you by my bookie. Folks, your fantasy league pays bragging rights. My bookie pays cash. Listen, you've done the research. You've got the gut picks. Now it's time to cash. Saturday, it's college chaos. Sunday, it's NFL insanity. And with my bookie, you've got every angle covered. Spreads, player props, live bets, and the ones you only whisper about until they hit. The setup's seamless. One account, one wallet, bet your game, play some blackjack, and reload without ever leaving the app. And if you're new to my bookie, use our code Dolphins. Again, that's the code Dolphins at mybookie.com. And any bet you choose up to $500 is fully covered. Make your play, and if it doesn't hit, you get it right back when you opt in using your bet back bonus token. This isn't fantasy. This is the real season. Let's cash with my bookie. Boom. Pretty good deal. $500. Are you kidding me? You can make a free $500 bet. Get in there. Bet responsibly, though. Bet responsibly. All right, let's look at the defense, Brain. I mean, if we're going to talk defense, I think the best place to start is with this defensive front. I think there's every argument to be made that this Miami Dolphins defensive front could have the best pass rush in the league. I think it is very possible that if that combination of guys stays healthy, Zach Sealer, Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Matthew Judon, if these guys can all stay healthy, look out. This team is going to make some quarterbacks hate life this season.
Absolutely. And so, like I said, we know that that's a caveat with this team, but we're going to assume that, look, right now, everybody that is healthy, we're going to assume that they are healthy. All of those guys that you mentioned are healthy. There's no reason to think that they're not going to be. And then you add in Kenneth Grant, number 13 pick.
Kenneth Grant.
You add in 5th round pick Jordan Phillips, who, a lot of people were considering as high as a 3rd round pick prior to the draft. And from what we've seen in camp and preseason, you kind of see that potential. He does not look like a 5th round pick. He looks like a guy who is already ready to be a rotational contributor on this defensive front. Benito Jones can play the nose, solid rotational interior defensive lineman. This is a deeper interior defensive line than it was a year ago. A year ago, you had 3 guys that were essentially, responsible for the lion's share of the interior defensive line snaps. It was Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell, and Benito Jones. And then you had a rotating 4th guy, whether it was Brandon Peely or towards the end of the year, it was, 1 or 2 other guys, but there was a huge drop off. And then even though Calais Campbell played at an extremely high level, he was only playing about 30 to 35 snaps a game. So when Calais Campbell went off the field or Zach Sealer came off the field, and that was a lot of times that those 2 guys were not on the field at the same time together, there was problems on the interior defensive line. You have fortified that with younger players. Kenneth Grant has the potential to play up to that level. Jordan Phillips has the potential to be an instant upgrade over what you had last year in Brandon Peely. And even a big guy, even, a Matthew Butler or a Zeke Biggers, I think are upgrades over what you had in Brandon Peely last year. So this is a deeper interior defensive line, and the edge group is deeper and healthier. We have seen what Jalen Phillips looks like when he's at full health and full strength. He is arguably a top 10 edge rusher, certainly a top 15 edge rusher in this league. Bradley Chubb, when healthy, you could say the same thing. Same level, a little bit of a different sort of profile, wins with more power than speed, but by the same token, up at that level. Chop Robinson, excellent rookie year, came on stronger and stronger as the year went on. And the fact that he's now on the field with these other guys and the space eaters inside, it makes Chop Robinson a chess piece that the Dolphins could put all over the place. You don't know if he's going to be rushing from the edge. You don't know if they're going to bring him through the B gaps and he's going to be rushing between your defensive tackles or between your ends and your tackles. You don't know where he's going to be coming from. It's a much more diverse, much deeper, and much higher ceiling defensive front, whether you're talking about the interior defensive lineman or the edge. It is, and then we'll talk about the linebackers here in a second, but as a front seven or front six, whatever you want to call it, this is arguably, I mean, it's as good a front six or front seven as anybody in the league right now.
And we have never seen in an actual game the combination of Chop Robinson, Jalen Phillips, and Bradley Chubb on the field at the same time. We've never seen it.
And we're going to see it for 17 games.
That's right. It's unbelievable. It's I used to pray for times like these. Let's talk about the linebacker room for your Miami Dolphin brain, because this is another unit on this team that is absolutely fuego. And it starts with Jordan Brooks, but it doesn't end there. You got Tyrell Dotson. You've just got a lot of skill in this room. And I think the way that it supplements that defensive front is enough to, like I said, you're going to have we famously recall, what was it? It was Zach Wilson or Sam Darnold seeing ghosts out there. This Miami Dolphins team is going to have a lot of quarterbacks seeing ghosts this year, Brandon.
The coolest thing about this linebacker core, aside from the fact that it is deeper than this linebacking core has been in a long, long time. Again, this is another one of those rooms that, like, you'd have to go back probably decades to get to a linebacker.
Willie Gay Jr. is there. I mean, KJ is there. I mean, Cameron Good is going to take steps forward. I mean, this is fire.
Yeah. Well, whether you call Cameron Good an edge, a linebacker, whatever, I'm not even going to really include him in this group because I'm really talking about off-ball linebackers. Most teams have one really good one and then a couple of fringe startable players because it's an area of the team that has been devalued over the past decade as the game has shifted towards more of a passing offenses. And then it's kind of, ebbed and flowed. What you really need to have an elite linebacker is somebody who can both drop back in coverage and attack and be stout in the running game. There are not many guys that can do it. So most teams have one guy that can do that. And then they kind of put the emphasis on guys that can cover, or they kind of have some guys that can cover, some guys that can be a little bit more stout in the running game. The Dolphins have three guys that can do it. That can do. I mean, Jordan Brooks of all the linebackers is the one guy that can do both at a high level. But Willie Gay and Tyrell Dotson are both capable of dropping into coverage. They're both capable of being blitzing linebackers, and they're both capable of filling gaps and being solid tacklers at the point of attack in run defense. And then you've got KJ Britt, who is specifically just for stopping the run, just being a sledgehammer and going out there, plugging up holes and stopping the run. It is the deepest linebacking group that the Dolphins have had in a long time. It's one of the deepest linebacker groups in the league. It's one of the best. It's certainly a top 10 linebacking group in the NFL, and you can make a case for top 5. It is a good linebacking group. And when you add in the fact that you have all the edge rushers that you have, and you see what Willie Gay has been able to do as a blitzing linebacker, essentially a 5th really good edge there who can also do other things as an off-ball linebacker. It's really a great group.
It really, really is. So that leads us to the place where I think a lot of people have questions about this Miami Dolphins team, which is the secondary. And I think if I'm going to take an optimistic approach at it, I think this secondary is in a lot better shape, which it doesn't say a lot for where the secondary was heading into camp, but the fact that the Dolphins have now brought in a lot of guys after the fact, Rasul Douglas, Jack Jones, Juju Brents, they've brought these guys in, Minkah Fitzpatrick. They've strengthened the unit over time to the point that I think if you can have an average secondary, as long as it is not a bottom tier secondary, if you have an average run of the mill NFL secondary, you're going to be okay because of the skill in that front 7. Your front 7 is so deep and so talented that I feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to make up for the insufficiency of your cornerbacks and your safeties with the strength of that front 7.
Yeah, look, I like it's an optimistic approach that we're taking on this show, but it's a realistic approach. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this secondary is going to be lights out and it's not going to have problems. But the secondary has added enough pieces and they've gotten enough guys healthy. There are enough pieces back there that the secondary can be okay. And the fact that the secondary does not need to be lights out to be effective, because if your offense is putting up a bunch of points and your defensive front is able to put pressure on the quarterback, that's making your back 7 job or your back 4 job easier, your secondary's job easier. And also the game script can make your secondary's job easier, because you can get into these games where you're up by 2 scores in the second half, and the opposing offense knows that they have to keep up with your high octane offense, and they're throwing the ball and you make them one-dimensional. That means your pass rushers are able to pin their ears back. If you've got 4 guys, or even if you decide to rush 5, but if you've got 4 guys that can get after the quarterback and you can still drop 7 guys back in coverage, well, now you've got help. We talked about how those linebackers can get back there in coverage. Well, you've elevated the floor of your secondary with guys like Rasul Douglas and Juju Brent, with guys who can play a little bit press man, mess up the timing of the opposing receivers. You've got safeties that are versatile in Ife Melifonwu, in Minkah Fitzpatrick. Ashton Davis, another one of those guys that we were concerned about from an injury perspective, practicing. There's your high post guy. You've got a guy in Dante Trader that you drafted in the 5th round and that the coaching staff has heaped praise upon unprompted without even really being asked about him. So they obviously like what they have there. It could be a surprisingly good safety group that could ultimately help the weaknesses that you have at corner. And even the weaknesses that you have at corner, the floor has been elevated with the guys that you have signed. This could be an average group. And if it is an average group and you pair that with a very good front 7 and an offense that can put up a lot of points, this team can win a lot of games.
They really can. And I think the other thing that kind of goes without saying is that, and it's one of the things that I'm interested in taking a look at this year, is Anthony Weaver has a way of really taking the talent that he has available and getting the best out of them. We saw this last year. With a team that was not, I don't know. I think the defense was better than it had really any right to be in some ways. And I think that is going to be the case this year as well. I think that Anthony Weaver is going to get plus play from his guys. And I think that is something to consider as well as we look ahead to the 2025 season. So with all that said, I guess we can talk about special teams here. Jake Bailey back to do the punting as well. I think he's going to do great. Unknown what the Dolphins are going to get out of their kicking game this year because Jason Sanders is banged up right now, but I think we're going to have Riley Patterson is going to take care of us for the first 3 weeks, and they're going to do well there. And then Jason Sanders hopefully will be back after that, those first 4 games out, and he'll be able to get back to his form, which I'm assuming that he's going to be able to do, because why not? He's Jason Sanders, he's money, and we love Jason Sanders. So let's now talk about, go ahead, Brain. You had something, look like you had something you want to say there.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Crossman is not here.
That's right.
Danny Crossman.
That's a win in and of itself.
It's a win. It's a win. The special teams is automatically better because Danny Crossman. It took one preseason game for us to see the best special teams performance we've seen from the Dolphins in a decade, and it was consistent throughout the preseason. It's going to be a better special teams unit than it has been because Danny Crossman isn't here.
Yes. So they're going to improve. How could they could hardly get much worse. So let's now talk about breaking news here from Mike Oliva of DolphinsTalk.com. He says Craig Aukerman merch is coming to the Dolphins Talk store. # stay tuned. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see the Craig Aukerman merch. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. So now let's talk about, what does this mean? We've talked about how we think the offense is going to be, how we think the defense is going to be. Let's take an outlook for the season. And I think, listen, we said we're going to be realistic. So let's be realistic. And Brain, you can tell me if you disagree. But I think realistically, the only way the Dolphins are winning the AFC East is if something were to happen to the quarterback of the Buffalo Bills that would prevent him from playing a significant amount of time over the course of the season. Otherwise, it's very difficult, even in my most optimistic, even as the biggest homer that I could be, I have a hard time looking at the two teams on paper and telling you that the Dolphins are going to be able to dethrone the Buffalo Bills as the kings of the AFC East. However, if something were to happen to Josh Allen, which I should mention, I have multiple Josh Allen fantasy shares across the board. So if there was ever, room for optimism, I never want to cheer for anybody to get hurt. I'm not that kind of person. I'm not that kind of fan. I'm never cheering for anybody to get hurt. But the fact that I have so much invested in Josh Allen as a player in my fantasy teams this year suggests there's a very good chance that he's going to suffer some sort of significant injury, because that's my luck when it comes to fantasy. But let's be realistic here, Brain. What is the best case scenario for the Dolphins regular season, given everything that we've talked about this year or tonight here on the show?
Yeah. And look, I would go as far as saying that would be the easiest pathway for the Dolphins to have a shot at winning the division, is a serious injury to Josh Allen. But look, even if Josh Allen is healthy, if they have injuries on their offensive line, if they have significant injuries to a receiving core that is already, not one of the better ones in the league, Josh Allen, he could get banged up and he could be playing at 80. It's not a couple of years ago, Josh Allen played the entire season and the Dolphins were in position to win this division. And the Bills went 11-6 with a team that arguably is better on paper than what they have this year and what they had last year. I'm not going to tell you that even in my most optimistic outlook that the Dolphins are going to win the AFC East, but injuries do happen. And if injuries do happen to the Bills and not to the Dolphins, I think the Dolphins are the second best team in this division. And so they have a shot. Now, not assuming the injuries for Buffalo, I think the best case scenario for this team, given certain deficiencies that they have, even taking the most optimistic outlook that you can have, I think you're looking at a wild card team. Now, is that an 11-win team, a 10-win team, a 12-win team? I think if we're taking the most optimistic approach and saying everything that we said is going to happen, and this team still doesn't win the division, we're probably talking about an 11 or 12-win team that's probably going to go into the playoffs as a 5 seed. They're not going to host a playoff game, but they're going to play a division winner that they probably have the same, if not a better record than, and they may go even on the road into the playoffs as the favorite, and they could win a playoff game. And that would be a tremendous success for a team that has not won a playoff game since January of 2001. And Josh dropped out, so I'm just going to keep going. Now let's say they win that game. All bets are off when you get into the playoffs. So if the Dolphins can win a playoff game, we don't know. I mean, look at the Lions last year. The Lions were a juggernaut, but they went into the playoffs in spite of having a great record. They went into the playoffs banged up. And so when Washington won their first round game, they went into Detroit and they were able to beat a banged up Detroit team and ended up in the NFC Championship game. Stranger things have happened. That's all I'm saying. But I think bare minimum, from an optimistic view, this team has a chance to make the playoffs and win a game.
Give me a record prediction.
Most optimistic view, but not winning the division. They make it in as the 5 seed with a 12-5 record.
Wow. All right. Okay. So you went even further than I was thinking. I think there is a path for this team to get to an 11-6 record and potentially, have an opportunity at being the team. If you could get that top wild card seed, you can perhaps be the team that gets to travel to the AFC South to take on that division winner or whoever the bottom tier division winner is. And the Dolphins can win that division, can win that matchup with maybe an 11-6 record and prove themselves down the road, because they're going to have to win some tough games on the road this season. They're going to have to beat some good teams to get to an 11-6 record, and just maybe they can start to break and bust some of the narratives, because that's what time it is, folks. That's what time it is for your 2025 Miami Dolphins. When everything falls just right, this team is going to be right there in the thick of the conversation, and I love to see it. Brain, anything else you want to add on this positivity-laced episode of the Same Old Dolphins Show?
No, I think that covers it. I look, again, we're going to assume that everybody stays healthy. So the points or the things about this team that we know are flawed, their depth, not going to be an issue because the starters are going to stay healthy.
That's
guys
right.
that you're not 100% sure if they're going to play at that high level or they're going to fall short, if Tua is going to take the next step, if Tyreek Hill is going to and Jalen Waddle are going to revert to the form that they had in previous years, or if what we saw last year was a sign of more things to come from them. Rookies like Kenneth Grant, like Jonah Savainea, like Jordan Phillips. Are these guys going to step in and be impact players? We don't know. They're rookies, but stranger things have happened than seeing rookies come in and play at a high level. If they do, and all of these things come to fruition, the Dolphins will be competing for the division and will be a playoff team.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say this because I see some people doubting in the comments, and what I'm going to say, every question that you have about this team, whether it's the players, whether it's the head coach, this is the year where all of those answers are going to be answered in a way that allows this team to reach its absolute ceiling. And so, listen, you may have doubts about the head coach. This is the year that he's going to get it together. You may have doubts about the offensive line. This is the year they're going to get it together. And they're going to have that opportunity to get to the playoffs. They're going to win that playoff game. And then after that, listen, once you're in the division round, you're playing with house money at that point. If this Dolphins team gets to the division round, you're playing with house money, you're playing loose, and anything is possible at that point. So that's what I'm going to say. And if you've got any doubts about anything that we're saying here today, I'm going to remind you that you should go back to the very beginning of this episode and give it a very good listen. And then, of course, make sure that you join us on Thursday when we give our official predictions for the Miami Dolphins 2025 season. Until then, a reminder to like this video, smash that thumbs up button, download, rate, review, share, subscribe to the Same Old Dolphins Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, everywhere you get your podcasts. Go to mybookie.com, use the code DOLPHINS if it's your first time, and you get that $500 bet back bonus, which is an exciting opportunity for you there. Make sure you're visiting DolphinsTalk.com each and every day. You've got just a few days left to take advantage of the $1 promotion for Dolphins Talk Extra. So head to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk and sign up today for as little as $1 a month on that $3 tier with that code DTX1. And then make sure you're heading to caneswear.com to get all of the best and most affordable Miami Dolphins gear on the internet. We will be back in your ears Thursday with our official season predictions, where we are going to preview the Dolphins' first game of the season. And of course, make sure you're up on Dolphins Talk Extra, because there's a lot of good stuff coming your way this week as well, including Survivor Pool, Pick'em Pool, all kinds of other great stuff, but only for Dolphins Talk Extra subscribers. So thanks as always for listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. And as always, go Dolphins!
The wild card round is our Super Bowl.